John Marshall Media proudly presents Don't Believe Everything You Think. Why Your Thinking is the Beginning and End of Suffering. Expanded Edition. Written by Joseph Nguyen. Narrated by Joseph Nguyen. A note before we begin. To access the workbook, please download the accompanying enhancement PDF from your audiobook provider. For Kenna, who taught me what unconditional love truly is and how it can change the world. Preface to the Expanded Edition. I wrote Don't Believe Everything You Think to save myself from my own mind. For as long as I could remember, I never knew what life was like without chronic fear and anxiety. No matter how I tried to change my thinking, I always felt the same: anxious, frustrated, and stressed. It wasn't until I stopped fighting my mind and began trying to understand it that things began to change. What I discovered transformed my relationship with my mind forever. What had been my worst enemy became my best friend. My intention when I released the first edition of this book was to share what I had found and hopefully help others experience freedom from their anxious minds. To me, if the book helped even one person, it would have been a success. I never expected that in just 2 years, the book would reach over 700,000 people across the world in dozens of different countries and be translated into over 40 languages. Every day, I am overwhelmed with gratitude for how much love the book has received and how often readers have shared it with their friends and family. I cannot thank each reader enough for their kindness and generosity. As the book continued to spread, I received thousands of messages of gratitude from readers and countless questions. I did my best to respond to as many of them as possible, and many of those I replied to noted how helpful my responses were. And so, when the opportunity arose, I decided to revise and expand the book to address all of these thoughtful questions readers had. The result, I hope, is a book that helps readers more profoundly on their journey to find peace. In this expanded edition, I added more examples, thought experiments, frameworks, and deeper explanations of many topics readers wanted to know more about. Poems throughout now provide another dimension for reflection on the book's ideas. One of the questions I received most frequently was about how to practically apply these concepts in daily life, so I've added a whole chapter that walks readers step by step through a methodology to help them let go of negative thinking in the simplest way possible. The book now also includes a final section of practical exercises designed to help readers practice and integrate the book's teachings into their lives more easily and seamlessly. I sincerely hope this book helps you as much as it has helped me. Thank you for allowing me to be on this journey with you, and I cannot wait to meet you within the pages. With all my love, Joseph. Most of us only change when the pain of holding on to what we're attached to is greater than the fear of the unknown. Introduction. What you will discover in this book. We cannot change what we are not aware of, and once we are aware, we cannot help but change. Sheryl Sandberg. You know the feeling. You sit down to accomplish a simple work task, and suddenly, you are flooded with thoughts of doubt and self-criticism. Why didn't you do this task earlier? You're not good enough. You're probably going to fail at this task anyway. What if people find out that you don't really know what you're doing? Why did they get a promotion and you didn't? At a company meeting, you try to be present, but you're consumed with thoughts of how much you hate your job. You want to quit and follow that dream you've always had, but you know there's no way you could succeed in that. It'll never happen. And besides, giving up your job is too risky. You'd rather suffer uncertainty than live with the fear of uncertainty. It's better to not try at all than to try and fail, right? But it's not just about work. As you go about your day, this thinking follows you. An interaction with a friend causes you to spiral. Why did you say that? Why are they even friends with you? Do they think you're weird? Did you say the wrong thing? Are they talking behind your back? Why are you so different from them? Why is it so hard to find friends? What if you end up alone? As you get home, you scroll on your mobile device and see dozens of picture-perfect posts, all of which are reminding you of everything you don't have, how the world is getting worse, and how everyone else's lives seem to be better than yours. Why do you feel so behind? Why does it seem like everyone has their life together and you don't? When will things start working out for you? By the time you reach the end of your day, you're exhausted. Your mind has been in overdrive all day, overthinking, overanalyzing, judging every decision you make. Now, lying in bed, the rumination continues and you can't sleep. All you want is a moment of peace. To be able to let go of the anxiety and overthinking that consume your days, the vicious cycles of doubt, shame, and anger. To be able to feel the joy, fulfillment, and peace that always seem just out of reach. But that kind of change feels impossible. You've been trying your whole life, but nothing has lessened the mental suffering you experience every day. You've concluded that life is suffering, and that's all there is to it. Everything feels hopeless. But this is only half the story. The narrative you are living can be changed at any time because it is being written in real time by you. Life does not have to be this way. Life is not suffering. Suffering is part of life, but it does not have to be the majority of it. You are not fundamentally broken. You are not a problem to be fixed, but a human who is meant to be understood. Through understanding yourself and how your experience of life is created in the mind, you can find peace. How do I know this? Because it has been my journey as well. I refused to believe that this was all life was, so I dedicated mine to discovering how to end my own psychological and emotional suffering. On that path, I found more questions than answers. What is suffering? Why do we suffer? What is the root cause of suffering? Is there an off button for this kind of rumination in the brain? How can we stop overthinking? Can anyone find peace, or is it only reserved for those who believe in certain religions, become monks, or attain enlightenment? Is it possible to find peace no matter what happens to us in life? These are the core questions that drove me to write this book, to save myself, and hopefully to help others do the same. This book was written to help you find those answers for yourself and finally find the peace you've been searching for. This is a bold statement, I know, but I have complete confidence that you will not be the same person after reading this book. The only constant in life is change. Growth is inevitable. And so, no matter who you are, where you're from, what you have or haven't done, what you have or don't have, I know from the depths of my soul that you can find peace, unconditional love, fulfillment, and an abundance of joy in life. I promise that this includes you, even if it doesn't feel that way yet. Love knows no boundaries. An open mind and a willing heart are all you need to receive every answer you've been seeking. There are, of course, practical benefits to reducing the mental suffering in our lives. Succeeding in our careers or work, building deeper and more harmonious relationships, overcoming lifelong addictions, letting go of destructive habits, and increasing our health, vitality, and overall energy. Yet these external results are not the point of this book. They are byproducts of understanding how our minds work and reducing the mental turmoil that stops us from creating a life we love. And more importantly, if we dig deeper, we see that most of our yearnings for approval, money, and significance stem from a desire to experience certain feelings. Feelings such as love, joy, peace, freedom, and fulfillment. These feelings are what we truly want. The psychological trap lies in believing that only external things will give us those feelings. The key is focusing on the feelings themselves and realizing how our emotions can be independent of our environment. Don't read this book for information. Read it for insight. Insight, wisdom, can only be found within. That is why it is called insight, inside. I will not tell you anything you don't already know deep inside your soul. To find everything you're looking for in life, you must look inside yourself and discover the wisdom that already exists within you. That is where the truth is found. This book is merely a guide to help you know where to look. The journey begins with the hope that a better life is possible. Without hope, we have nothing. So the fact that you're here, reading this now, is a testament to your faith, courage, and strength. I know, with absolute certainty, that you will find what you're looking for if you continue on your path with the belief you have in your heart. The words in this book are not the truth. They point to the truth. Truth cannot be intellectualized. It can only be experienced. It is within everyone and everything. But you must look beyond the form, the physical, to see and experience the truth, the spiritual. Look beyond the words. Truth comes in the form of a feeling. Look for that feeling. From that feeling will come the wisdom you seek, which will set you free. And that's what we're all ultimately seeking, isn't it? Many who discover the truth describe the feeling as a resonance in your heart and a sense of alignment and harmony with who you truly are. It is an experience of peace and liberation. They say it's the most familiar, unfamiliar feeling, like you're finally home. It is the feeling of discovering that which you already know. This book may seem simple. In fact, the solutions I propose may seem almost too simple, and your mind, ego, may try to fight them or attempt to make them more complex. When that time comes, I want you to remember that the truth is always simple. If you want to find the truth, look for simplicity. Approach this book with an open mind and a heart of pure intention to know the truth, and you'll receive everything you've been searching for. This book is designed to help you discover the root cause of your mental suffering and how we all have the power to choose a new experience. To solve a problem, you first need to understand it deeply. And so, for this reason, much of this book is spent describing this insight. But I also want to give you tools that will make it easier to apply these ideas in your life and create the transformation you seek. That is where the practice section at the end of this book comes into play. It is your toolbox with guides, prompts, and exercises that offer tangible step-by-step help to allow you to find more peace, love, and joy in your life. As you make them a part of your daily practice, the change you desire will become inevitable. Before we move on, I want to express my deepest gratitude to you for being here and sharing your time and attention with me. Those are some of the most valuable gifts you can give another. Thank you for that gift to me, which you are also giving to yourself. Never forget your own divinity, because it is only through our divinity that we have our humanity. From my heart to yours, Joseph. What we hold on to perpetuates our reality. What we let go of creates new possibilities. Chapter 1. The journey to discovering the root cause of suffering. People have a hard time letting go of their suffering. Out of a fear of the unknown, they prefer suffering that is familiar. Thich Nhat Hanh. Before we can explore how to end our suffering, we first have to understand what we mean by suffering. Suffering is not the same as pain, and understanding the distinction between the two is the key to realizing that no matter what happens in life, we do not have to suffer emotionally and psychologically. A Buddhist teaching helps explain this concept. It is said that 2 arrows fly our way whenever we experience a negative event. Being struck by the first arrow hurts. That arrow is pain. The second arrow is our emotional reaction to the first, and often it is even more painful than the first arrow. That second arrow is where suffering originates from. The Buddha explained, in life, we can't always control the first arrow. However, the second arrow is our reaction to the first. The second arrow is optional. In other words, pain is unavoidable, but how we react to that pain is up to us, and that reaction will dictate whether or not we suffer. Now, I'm not saying that the difficult experiences we've been through are all in our heads. On the contrary, terrible and unfortunate things happen to people every single day. I'm saying that although we inevitably experience pain in our lives, suffering is optional. And it is this suffering from which we can learn to free ourselves. When I first heard the story of the two arrows, it was a revelation. It gave me a new way to understand the suffering I was experiencing. The problem wasn't the pain itself, it was my reaction to the pain. But this excitement was quickly followed by a new wave of confusion. How could I simply choose not to suffer? If it were as easy as that, no one would suffer anymore. On my journey to find peace, I came across many teachings, studies, and methods that promised to eliminate the suffering. I read dozens, if not hundreds, of books, studied psychology and philosophy, talked to therapists, and tried changing my habits, waking up at 4 a.m., following a vegan diet, becoming more structured and disciplined. I did shadow work, breath work, energy work, hypnotherapy, studied personality types, meditated daily, went on spiritual retreats, followed spiritual masters, and researched ancient religions. You name it, I've probably tried it. I was desperate to stop my own suffering. Although some of these things did help me, and they've likely helped you too, they didn't end my suffering. I still felt anxious, fearful, unfulfilled, irritated, angry, and frustrated every day. Even after trying everything, I didn't feel any closer to a solution, and if I'm being honest, I felt even more hopeless than when I had begun. I didn't know what to do anymore, where to look, or who to talk to. It wasn't until I was in my darkest hour that a glimmer of hope began to lead me to the light. Suddenly, after years of searching, I stumbled upon a concept that took me right back to the teaching of the two arrows and how I could prevent the second one from hitting, so I didn't have to suffer emotionally anymore. The answer was in understanding how our minds work and how the human experience is created. How long are you going to keep holding on to the story you don't want to keep reliving? Chapter 2. The Root Cause of Suffering. One who looks around him is intelligent. One who looks within him is wise. Matshana Dilawayo. We live in a world of thought, not reality. Philosopher Sydney Banks once said, "Thought is not reality, yet it is through thought that our realities are created." What he means by this is that each of us lives through our own perception of the world, which is vastly different from that of the person next to us. For example, you could be sitting in a coffee shop having an existential crisis, completely stressed out of your mind about how you have no idea what you're doing with your life, while at the same time, the person next to you is happily enjoying their freshly brewed drink and peacefully people-watching. You both are in the same coffee shop, smelling the same aromas, surrounded by the same strangers, but how the world looks to each of you couldn't be more different. Many of us go through the same events in exactly the same locations at the same time, yet we are having radically different experiences of the world. This is what I mean when I say we live in a world of thought and not reality. Reality is what is happening right now. It is the objective circumstance that is occurring without any meaning or judgment attached to it. And so, what we experience is not reality itself, but our perception of reality. Any meaning or thinking we give something is self-created and our choice. Here's another example. If you walk up to 100 different people and ask each of them what money means to them, how many different answers do you think you'll get? Money has a technical definition, but it means something different to each of us. Depending on who you are, money can mean time, freedom, opportunity, security, and peace of mind. Or it could mean evil, greed, and the basis for crimes. There are no right or wrong answers here, but the meaning we give something is the filter through which we see life. Just imagine how many answers you'll get if you ask 100 people their opinions on the current president. Even though it's the same person we're talking about, you will get quite a few different answers because we all have different beliefs we are projecting onto what we are observing. This is where we return to the idea of the two arrows, pain and suffering. It's not the events that happen in our lives, but our interpretation of them that causes us to feel good or bad. This is how people in developing countries can be happier than people in developed countries, and how people in developed countries can be more miserable than people in developing countries. Our feelings come not from external events, but from our own thinking about the events. Let's hypothetically say that you really hate your job and that it causes you an enormous amount of stress. It pains you to even set foot in the building where you work, and just thinking about your job makes you anxious. Even when you're at home with your family, sitting on the sofa and watching a TV show together, you're completely occupied thinking about how miserable your job makes you. Everyone else on that sofa is having a good time, except for you. At this moment, the rest of your family is having an experience of life that is different from yours, even though the same event, watching TV, is happening for all of you. Just thinking about work is creating a whole different perception of reality for you, even though you are not physically at work. If it were true that external events are solely responsible for internal feelings, then you would be a happy camper in your living room, enjoying the moment every time you watch a funny TV show with your loved ones. But that's not the case. Now, you may say that you're only feeling unhappy because a negative external circumstance, your job, is causing you stress. To that, I'll ask, while a job may be demanding, does that mean it must lead to suffering? Or, put in another way, is it absolutely true that every person who has the same intense job feels the exact same way about that job? Take paramedics or firefighters, for example. While their jobs can be very intense, not every person working those jobs has the same experience of it. Some may experience anxiety, dread, and distress, while others experience calm, fulfillment, and even excitement. Two people can be doing the same job but have very different experiences of it. It can be the most amazing dream job for one person, but the other person's worst nightmare. The question is, what determines which experience someone will have? Let's do a quick thought experiment to see. Consider again the theoretically stressful job, the one that you hate. How would you feel if you didn't think that you hated your job? Take a few moments to see what comes up for you. If you don't overthink it and simply let the answers surface from within you, I imagine you will come to the conclusion that without that line of thinking, the ruminating, judging, and spiraling, you would most likely feel peaceful, free, and light, even if you didn't change anything about the job itself. Which means that without our usual thinking about a particular event, our experience of it completely alters. And with this understanding, we've arrived at the truth I discovered after all those years of searching. The root cause of our suffering is our own thinking. Before you light this book on fire and throw it across the room, please know I'm not saying that what we're experiencing isn't real. Our perception of reality is very real. We feel what we think, and our emotions are real. That is undeniable. However, what I am saying is that how we feel will look like an inevitable, unchangeable reality until we recognize the role that our thinking plays in creating it. By changing our thinking, we can change our reality. And if that is true, then we are only ever one thought away from transforming our lives and letting go of our suffering. In short, the moment we stop thinking is when our happiness begins. The human experience equation. Our experience of reality is created from the combination of the events we encounter and what we think about them. To reiterate, our emotions come not from external events, but from our thinking about them. Here is a simpler way to understand how our thinking can change our experience of an event through a simple equation. Event plus same thinking equals same experience. Event plus new thinking equals new experience. What this equation means is that when we go through an event and think about it the same way we always have, it will always produce the same experience, and therefore the same emotion. But if we change our thinking about that same event, we can alter our experience of it and create a new emotional response. When you change your thinking, you change your experience of life without needing to change the event that happened. However, while we can change our thinking, the most ideal path to serenity is to let go of our thinking entirely. Without our own thinking about an event, we find peace because we are experiencing exactly what reality is without our own judgments, stories, or expectations of it. If we simplify the equation, we can see exactly this. Event plus thinking equals perception of reality. Event without thinking equals reality. Event without thinking equals peace. A young monk and the empty boat. A Zen story about how our thinking is the cause of our suffering. A long time ago, a young Zen monk lived in a small monastery in a forest near a lake. A few senior monks occupied the monastery, while the rest were newcomers who still had much to learn. The monks had many duties. One of the most important parts of their daily routine was when they had to sit down, close their eyes, and meditate in silence for hours at a time. After each meditation, they had to report their progress to their mentor. One young monk had difficulty staying focused during his meditation practice for various reasons, which made him very angry. After the young monk reported his progress to his mentor, the elder asked a simple question with a hidden lesson. Do you know what is really making you angry? The young monk replied, Well, as soon as I close my eyes and meditate, someone starts moving around and I can't focus. I get agitated that someone is disturbing me even though they know I am meditating. How can they not be more considerate? And then, when I close my eyes again and try to focus, a cat or a small animal might brush past and disturb me again. By this point, even when the wind blows and the tree branches make a noise, I get angry. If that is not enough, the birds keep on chirping, and I can't seem to find any peace in this place. The elder monk simply pointed out to his pupil, I see that you become angrier with each interruption you encounter. This is exactly the opposite of the point of meditating. You should find a way to not get angry with people, animals, or anything around you that disturbs you doing your task. After their consultation, the young monk left the monastery and looked around to find a place that would be quieter so he could meditate peacefully. He found such a place at the shore of the lake nearby. He brought his mat, sat down, and started meditating. But soon, a flock of birds splashed down into the lake. Hearing their noise, the monk opened his eyes in rage. Even though the bank of the lake was quieter than the monastery, things were still disturbing his peace, and he got angry again. But even though he didn't find the peace he was looking for, he kept returning to the lake. Then one day, the monk saw a boat tied to the end of a small pier. Why don't I take the boat, row it down to the middle of the lake, and meditate there, he thought. In the middle of the lake, there will be nothing to disturb me. He rowed the boat to the middle of the lake and started meditating. As he had expected, there was nothing in the middle of the lake to disturb him, and he was able to meditate the whole day. At the end of the day, he returned to the monastery. This continued for a few days, and the monk was thrilled that he had finally found a place to meditate in peace. He didn't feel angry and could calmly continue the meditation practice. Then one day, when the monk was meditating in the middle of the lake, he heard water splashing and felt the boat rocking. He started getting upset that even in the middle of the lake, someone was disturbing him. Opening his eyes, he saw a boat heading straight toward him. He shouted, "Steer your boat away, or you will hit my boat." But the other boat kept coming directly at him and was only a few feet away. He yelled again, but there was no response, and the incoming boat hit the monk's boat. Now he was furious. "Who are you, and why have you hit my boat in the middle of this vast lake?" he screamed. There was no answer. This made him even angrier. He stood up to see who was in the other boat, and to his surprise, he found no one in the boat. The boat had probably come untied and drifted along in the breeze until it had bumped into the monk's boat. It was just an empty boat. The monk found his anger dissipating, for there was no one to be angry at. At that moment, he remembered his mentor's question, "Do you know what is really making you angry?" Now he knew he had his answer. It's not other people, situations, or circumstances. It's not the empty boat, but my reaction to it that causes my anger. All the people or situations that upset me are like the empty boat. Without my reaction, they don't have the power to make me angry. The monk then rowed the boat back to the shore. He returned to the monastery and started meditating along with the others. There were still noises and disturbances, but he treated them as empty boats and continued meditating peacefully. When the elder monk saw the difference, he said to the young monk, "I see that you have found what is really making you angry, and you have overcome that." True freedom isn't in having complete control of our minds, but in the ability to be unattached to whatever happens in it.